Number 9. Morandi Bridge. On August the 14th of 2018, a large section of road viaduct in Genoa, Italy, tragically collapsed during a rainstorm, causing the death of 43 people. Since its completion in 1967, the Morandi Bridge had been an engineering and architectural landmark, as well as a critical road artery linking Italy and France. It was made out of steel and a compressed concrete, but had been deemed susceptible to corrosion, cracks, and water infiltration. Designer Riccardo Morandi himself recommended in a report that authorities remove all traces of rust on the bridge and cover weak points with highly resistant polymers. The storm on August the 14th critically stressed the bridge's vulnerabilities as it was undergoing maintenance work. A 690-foot span, almost twice as long as a football field, collapsed into the storm-swollen Polcevera River. 3 trucks and 30 to 35 cars plummeted into the raging waters, resulting in a catastrophic loss of life. Factors such as landslides and witness-reported lightning strikes may have also contributed to the collapse. In the aftermath, a year-long state of emergency was declared in the Liguria region, and concerns were raised regarding the country's infrastructure. What remained of the Morandi Bridge was demolished with a ton of explosives in 2019, and a new bridge was completed in 2020. Number 8. Dixon Bridge disaster. When considering the high number of fatalities, the Dixon Bridge collapse of 1873 is often referred to as the deadliest road bridge disaster in American history. The accident was subsequently blamed on the iron lattice work design of contractor L.E. Truesdell, coupled with overloading and the suspected use of inferior materials. On May the 4th, word had circulated around town that the reverend of a Baptist church was going to baptize several converts in the Rock River. 150 to 200 people had gathered on the bridge to watch the ceremony as it took place on the north side of the river. Most of the crowd was concentrated on a sidewalk between the riverbank and the first pier. Before long, they felt that the bridge had started to vibrate. The crowd uttered what was described by a contemporary press as one wild, fearful shriek when the north span fell. 4 other spans failed, twisted in different directions. Limbs were mangled by the iron lattice work as it pivoted like shears. Some people were caught in it, like a cage, as they fell 18 feet into the water. The river was 15 to 20 feet deep, therefore those trapped in the lattice work were beyond saving. One woman could only be freed from the debris by having her legs sawed off. According to the most thorough accounts of the tragedy, 46 people died, while at least 56 others were injured. Number 7. Iron Workers Memorial Bridge. The Iron Workers Memorial Bridge in Vancouver, Canada, owes its name to a tragic incident which occurred as it was being built on June the 7th of 1958. As a crane extended to connect 2 chords of the unfinished arch, several spans of the bridge collapsed. It was later attributed to a miscalculation made by the engineers. Because of the error, a temporary support arm meant to anchor a span of the bridge while it was being built was unable to bear its weight. 18 workers were killed either instantly or after falling into the water. Some reportedly drowned due to the weight of their tool belts. A diver also died while searching for bodies, bringing the disaster's death toll to 19. In 1994, the bridge was renamed to honor those who'd perished during its construction. Number 6. Kutai Kartanagara. Upon its completion in 2001, the Kutai Kartanagara Bridge, crossing Borneo's Mahakam River, was Indonesia's longest suspension bridge, meant to resemble in design San Francisco's Golden Gate Bridge. 10 years after it was built, a catastrophic failure occurred. On November the 26th of 2011, a support cable snapped and the entire roadway collapsed into the river below. All that remained of the structure were some support cables in the towers. At least 20 people were killed, 19 were declared missing, and over 40 were injured. Subsequent reports would indicate that basic errors, supported by a lack of suspension bridge building guidelines, had led to the disastrous collapse. The bolts connecting the hangar to the deck and suspension cable were made from brittle cast iron material. At the time of the collapse, workers were performing maintenance on the bridge, and only one of the 5-strong team survived. According to his witness statement, they were jacking the structure, a procedure that involves lifting the bridge from underneath. This added stress to one of the bolt connections. Once it failed, a chain reaction led to a total collapse within 20 seconds. The team hadn't completely closed the bridge to traffic, which also contributed to the high death toll. Number 5. Guinea Bridge collapse. In March of 2007, dozens of lives were lost following a bridge failure in southeastern Guinea. A truck packed with passengers and merchandise was traveling to a weekly market. It was located near the remote town of Guékédou, about 250 miles from the nation's capital. According to a military officer who chose not to be named, the bridge collapsed under the weight of the vehicle. At least 65 people plummeted to their death. French radio RFI reported that there were only 7 survivors. While the cause of the bridge failure was not described, suspicions fell on the lack of proper structural regulations in the West African country. Vehicles are often overloaded, while bridges and roads in many regions tend to be poorly maintained. Number 4. Collapse of Kan-Tor Bridge. The collapse of the Kan-Tor Bridge, which occurred on the 26th of September 2007, is regarded by many as the deadliest disaster in the history of Vietnam's construction industry. As the bridge was being erected, a steel and concrete portion of an approach ramp fell to the ground. It was roughly 300 feet long, meaning it was almost the size of a soccer pitch, and it fell from roughly 100 feet above ground. Over 250 workers and engineers were either on or under the span of the bridge as it crashed. Some fell to their deaths while others were crushed under the enormous concrete block. The construction team leader later described hearing a deafening thud and then seeing a cloud of dust rise into the air. Aside from local emergency teams and volunteers, the rescue effort was joined by professionals from Japan and the Philippines. Others were contracted by the American Chamber of Commerce in Vietnam, from Singapore and Thailand. Official documentation on the disaster claims that 54 men died and 80 were seriously injured, although the figures have varied across international reports. The cause of the accident has in most reports been attributed to the instability of temporary support pillars. This was either due to overloading or recent heavy rains, which had potentially softened the foundation. Number 3. Hintsa Ribeiro disaster. On March the 4th of 2001, one of the deadliest structural failures in the history of modern Portugal occurred in Castelo de Paiva. At around 9 p.m., multiple sections of the Hintsa Ribeiro Bridge plummeted into the Douro, which is the highest flow river of the Iberian Peninsula. 59 people lost their lives, including those from a bus and 3 cars that were crossing the bridge. The collapse had occurred in conditions of stormy weather and fast-moving currents. This made a timely rescue of the victims virtually impossible. They drowned in the raging waters and their bodies were swept downstream to the Atlantic Ocean. One body was found on the coast of France, while others emerged in the coastal waters of northern Spain. It was later determined that the stability of the bridge's supporting pillars at the central span had been compromised by years of uncontrolled sand extraction. Even though specialists had warned of the impending danger, they were largely ignored by the authorities. Within hours of the tragedy, the country's Minister of Transportation resigned from his function. Today's topic was inspired by Vanilla Conover. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Mayanes Bridge partial collapse. On June the 28th of 1983, the collapse of a 100-foot section of the Mayanes Bridge in Greenwich, Connecticut, caused the death of 3 motorists. The disaster occurred at 1:30 a.m. when traffic was low on the highway, which was often crowded during rush hours. The section of the bridge fell roughly 70 feet into the Mayanes River, taking with it 2 cars and 2 tractor-trailers. An investigation by the National Transport Safety Board reported that it had been caused by the failure of 2 assemblies that kept the deck in place on the outer side of the bridge. Inadequate water drainage had caused erosion, and a buildup of rust in the pins meant to hold the plate girders together. This compromised their structural integrity, causing them to crack under the weight of the vehicles. An alternative theory was that trucks employed by companies to carry toxic waste would often open their valves while crossing the bridge to release some of their load. The spilled chemicals thus potentially had eaten away at the metal structure. Number 1. Rifiganj disaster. At least 130 people died on September the 10th of 2002 following a horrific railway disaster in north-central India. On that day, a high-speed luxury train was traveling from Howrah towards New Delhi while carrying over 1,000 passengers. As it crossed the railway bridge, over the Davy River, the train derailed. 15 of the 18 cars fell across the tracks, while 2 plummeted into the river, which had been swollen by rainstorms at the time. The sheer force of the crash threw passengers from other carriages into the water as well. Recent heavy rains had also turned the region's underdeveloped roads into muddy streams, which hindered rescue efforts. Locals managed to pull some of the victims to safety, but there was nothing that they could do for those trapped in the carriages that had been swallowed by the river. Judging from the bodies that were recovered, the official death toll was placed at 130. However, some news outlets believed it to have been closer to 200 and perhaps even higher, since many of those missing were never found. It still isn't entirely clear what had caused the crash. One theory attributed it to the wear and tear on the colonial-era bridge, which had been considered weak for some time. Another report claims that the fish plates meant to anchor the rails to the bridge were missing. These could have been removed by common theft, deliberate sabotage, or dislodged during the crash and sent falling into the river. Thanks for watching. Would you rather be on a collapsing bridge or in a beachside house as a tsunami struck? Let us know in the comments section below.